When you're taking action, you need to ask yourself, am I consuming or creating? Am I thinking about doing something or am I actually doing something? Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Hey everybody, how are you? Are you getting ready for the holidays? It feels insane that we're already near the holidays. Thanksgiving is just a few weeks away. If you're from the US, that's coming up. Christmas, New Year's are right around the corner. I cannot believe it. It does feel like the holidays here in Rome right now. Last week it felt like summer, and this week it feels like Christmas. It's been very cold. I asked someone who's from Rome if this is normal. He said, not at all. Last year was never this cold. So we've been in for a treat, and it's definitely made us feel holiday-ish, Christmas-ish. I caught one of my girls listening to Christmas music today. Excited for just the holiday season. There's something special about the holidays. And I have to say, what else I'm really excited about is we're a couple weeks into the pivot, and I'm hearing wins all over the place. It's so fun. I just love that I get to do this with parents. And I am especially looking forward to this special pivot, which not only is over the holidays, which is really fun, but also getting brand new lessons updated. Same content or focus, rather, what I'm teaching is the same that I've been teaching before, but updated and revised and more concise. And I actually found a studio here in Rome that I've been doing them in. So that's been super fun. And it's the reason that I've been sharing live trainings from the last few years with you over the last couple of weeks, because I have not had any bandwidth to record an episode for you. But today I do. And so we're getting a live, brand new episode with you all today. And I cannot wait, because it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. Massive action versus passive action. I'm right in the middle of applying it for myself and seeing what's coming up for me, and seeing it also with the parents that are in the pivot, some of the same dynamics, which is always so fun. So I thought I would unpack it all for you today, especially if you're in pivot. Listen up, because this is important as you're diving into the material. But for everyone listening, whether you've worked with me in the past, you haven't worked with me at all, I want you to be able to make a difference in your parenting. So take what I teach you today and apply it. But if you are in the pivot, really, really listen in, because I want you to take this and apply it to all the work that we're doing together. So I want to differentiate between the two, give you my definition of massive versus passive action. Massive action is taking action until you get the result you want. And passive action is consuming information without creating results. I get so many parents that come to me that are taking all kinds of action. They're learning what to say. They're learning how to say it, how to speak more kindly with their child, and nothing's really changing. They'll come to me and say, Andy, I've tried other programs. I've listened to other podcasts, and they're talking about the phrases to say, and it's not working. And that's because they haven't figured out the difference between cognitive and emotional action. But once you understand that your thoughts create your emotions, and that your emotions drive your action, then it's ready. Then it's time to really commit to taking action, to really commit to ongoing action that includes the emotional piece of action, not just the cognitive piece. We have to have both, but without the emotional piece, the cognitive learning, knowing what to say, that's not going to carry you all the way through to the finish line. So having both the cognitive and the emotional piece of the action puzzle is what I call massive action. And massive action, again, is being willing to take action until you get the results you want. And you have to have the knowledge, and you have to have the emotional capacity to do that. And thank goodness, if you're in pivot, if you're working with me, we do both. So this is really important, to take action despite obstacles or failures, continuing to take action until that desired result is achieved. So if someone says to me, they took massive action, but they never hit their goal, I know why. It's because they're still not taking the action. If you notice what I said, it's when someone said they took action, but they didn't hit their goal. So they're talking in the past. They're like, oh, you don't understand. Like, I tried all the things, but it didn't work. Well, that's because they aren't still taking action to get the result that they want. Maybe they tried other ideas. I'll use parenting, since that's my love and my passion. So let's say they used a type of parenting strategy that only included the tips and tricks and behavior modification. Say this and your child should do this. And if they don't do this behavior, then these are the appropriate consequences. And they didn't understand attachment theory. That'd be a big miss. And they didn't understand the emotional part, the nervous system part that they would need to do personally to be able to show up that way for their kids. Well, if they haven't continued to take action until they found those components that they were missing, then that's why they didn't hit their goal. And I want to say this with so much love and compassion because I've done this so many times where I took action and tried to go forward on a plan that I thought was going to work and it didn't work. And instead of saying, well, I guess I just need a new plan, I kept trying the same plan, or I would fool myself into saying I was doing the plan, but I really wasn't doing the plan. And then I never hit the result. So then I kind of gave up and it was very frustrating. And I understand that it's very frustrating to take action and not get the result you want, and then to take more action and not get the result you want, and then more action and not get the result you want. But there's always a reason why it's not working. And if we make an excuse and stop taking action instead of saying, I wonder why this isn't working. Oh, maybe I'm missing something. Let me find what I'm missing. I'm missing an emotional component. I'm missing the attachment component. What is it that I'm missing? And then I look for it and I find it and I don't make an excuse to stop taking actions. And I have been in both camps where I did stop taking action and I just threw up my hands and said, this is it. I can't do it. It's hopeless. And it feels so frustrating. It requires a lot of energy to stay in passive action and to stay in a place where you feel like you're not hitting the results that you want. It's so exhausting. So I would rather keep looking for the answer and keep iterating on my plan until I had what I needed to create the result I want. Yes, that's exhausting, but so is not getting my result. And it might feel like it's easier to quit than keep going, but it's actually not. So massive action is a commitment to keep taking action until you get the result you want. And let me illustrate this with driving. Driving, let's say you're going to the grocery store and between where you live and the grocery store, you're going to hit lights. Maybe there's going to be traffic, perhaps construction. Maybe you're going to hit a school zone and you have to slow down or even stop. All of these things might happen on your trip. And you're probably anticipating the normal things that would slow you down and even temporarily stop you along the way to the store. They aren't unexpected. And when you get stopped at a light, you're not worried about the fact that this light is going to prevent you from ever getting to the store. You don't stop the journey. You're sure that you're going to make it there. And sure, you'd rather not hit any lights or traffic or construction along the way, but it's not a problem when you do. And you anticipate that there's pretty high chances that you will, unless you live right next to the store. So maybe you do. But for most of us, we have to drive a little bit or walk a little bit, and it's not a problem. Obstacles are part of the process, and it's not a reason to quit. And you don't make the stoplights or the school crossing zone or construction or whatever it is, traffic, to mean that you have failed to go to the store or that it's taking too long. You just accept that this is the way it is. It's not a problem, and you're going to get to the store eventually. And that is what I want you to be thinking about as I'm trying to explain this concept of taking massive action, unstoppable action. Failure or stop signs or construction, those are part of the journey of taking massive action. When you set a goal and you commit to a certain result, you're going to hit obstacles. You're going to hit many red lights. You're going to have to do a U-turn maybe if there's construction. You are not going to think it's a problem, that there's other cars on the road, that there's a red light that you hit, that the school walk crossing zone thing has hit right when you decided to go to the store. You're just going to think, oh, it's fine. You're not going to think the end of the world. You're just going to think, I'm sitting here. It's no problem. Not a big deal. And you're going to keep moving forward. You're not going to think, oh, I can't even get there now. I'm going to turn around. I'm going to go home. I guess we're not going to have any food today. Forget about it. I'm not doing this anymore. But literally, that is what we do when it comes to our goals, especially our parenting goals. I have seen this with parents coming to me and they have really beautiful goals of wanting to have deep connections with their kids. They want to be different when there's off-track behavior, but they hit an obstacle and their brain has associated a failure with meaning they can't do it, or it's not possible, or their kids aren't interested, or there's something wrong with them or their kids. So we hit one obstacle and we throw our hands up in the air and we say, this isn't working, I'm out of here. And that's just insanity. I mean, I've done this. That's why I can say it. I'm not saying it as a judgment to anyone else. I'm looking back on my life and saying it's insane and totally normal that when I hit obstacles with certain goals, I made it mean that something was wrong with me and that I was never going to accomplish what I wanted in my life. I was never going to be the parent I wanted to be. I was never going to be patient. I wasn't going to be able to create the great bedtime routine I wanted or the deep relationships with my kids. And it wasn't until I broke through this pattern of making failures and obstacles mean something was wrong that I was able to iterate on a plan enough times and keep looking for information out there long enough to find something that did work, which is why I am doing this podcast now, because I feel so compelled to make sure everyone on the planet who is interested in this material can learn what Connect Method Parenting is about, because it changes your life, not just your parenting, it changes your life. Now, when it comes to going to the grocery store, we have some experience doing that. The first time we try something, we aren't expecting an obstacle, but the trip to the grocery store that you take tomorrow, you've done that hundreds of times, thousands of times. And so you know what to expect and you're familiar with some of the obstacles that get in the way. And so you don't make them mean crazy things. But when we are trying to create a connection plan, when we're trying to heal a relationship, when we're trying to stop yelling around something that is really triggering to us, we don't have that history to anticipate the obstacles. We don't know what the obstacles are going to be. And our brain has had a lot of years making failure mean something's wrong with us. So we need to reverse this, like take us back a few steps and not make failure mean that we should quit. So massive action for anything that you do in your life is the process of anticipating those obstacles, knowing they're going to be there, being willing to fail and fail and fail and fail and iterate and regroup and try it again and do it wrong again and try it again and have new obstacles that you could never have understood that they were ever going to pop up, but you expect that there will be obstacles. So when they come, you're like, okay, I expected an obstacle, didn't realize it was going to be this, and you keep going. And let me tell you something. When you can do this, when you can take this massive, intentional, committed action, you're going to change your life. It's very, very rare that we do this. Most of us take action once and then we give up. We try a diet. It didn't work. I didn't lose my 5 pounds. Done. Food plan. I don't really like how that food would taste. We try some emotional processing work, but we, kind of abandon it. We try to do a cartwheel. I actually really love doing cartwheels. I grew up with doing gymnastics, but like a cartwheel, or for me, it would be, trying to do some weight exercise at the gym that's really intimidating to me. I'm like, no. Right. We try to do yoga. We try to do Pilates. We try once and then we don't do it again. It doesn't work out the way we want to. It doesn't give us that instant result. And so we quit. This is just taking action. But what I'm talking about is taking massive action. I'm inviting you to keep taking action until you get the result you want. All right, I'm going to tell you about 2 different kinds of parents that I have met. And I have been both of these kinds of parents, so I can see myself in these prototypes I'm going to be sharing. I see many of my clients in them, and sometimes they start in one and they move to the other. I'm not saying that one is bad and one is good. They're both phases that we go through, so you're probably going to see yourself in both of them. My personal goal is to stay in parent type A as much as possible, but I don't always stay in, the highest connective value cycle. But just knowing that there are these 2 cycles, that it's okay I go through both of them, and seeing clearly what it looks like to be in the high connective value cycle of parent A allows me to be there more often. So that's why I want to describe them for you. So the first parent A, has been working with me for a while. They're coming to office hours to prepare for something that's happening the following week. And this type of parent is saying, okay, we had a rough patch last week when my daughter had to do this activity and it didn't go very well. I don't like how I showed up, and I'm trying to assess if my daughter's ready for this activity or if this is an indicator that she's not ready for this activity. So we problem solve it and we help come up with really good indicators as she's navigating it, how to know if her daughter's ready to do something uncomfortable and to be supported through the discomfort, or if this is too much for her to handle. We come up with a 3-pronged strategy using the 3 CMP strategies, and she commits to doing it. And then the next week, after she's she's implemented it, right? So I'm saying like comes to a call and works through it about a week ahead of time, which is not always the case and not always possible, but this is one type of parent I see over and over again in my programs. They come ahead of time, they have seen a problem, a repetitive problem, they know it's going to come up again, and they're actively creating a plan days or a week or a couple weeks before it's happening because they want to be prepared. And then they go to work between the time of our call and what the call I'm talking about is in Pivot. We have these office hour calls where you can come and ask questions and we can in real time work through something through the lens of attachment using the 3 CMP strategies to create a brilliant plan that you're going to go implement, and we're going to see how it works. So the following week, after really having spent some time thinking about the situation with the child and the mom thinking about the situation for her, mapping out different scenarios, deciding all of the different ways that this could go down, and getting to a place where she is feeling accepting of all of them, emotionally neutral no matter what happens, even the worst case scenario, because I think that's so helpful to go to worst case scenario and think, hey, if the worst thing my brain can come up with happened, can I still be okay? Can I still be regulated? Because then you're truly emotionally ready to respond in the most connective way with your prefrontal cortex on, not being activated. And so you do that work for yourself. And then you start thinking about your child. You're like, okay, what do they need on the day when this is going to happen? What do they need to feel supported so that they are feeling connected to me so that they can work through this? And typically this looks like coming up with some type of playful approach, supportive approach, looking at how can we be more, or I can be more unconditionally accepting and loving today, giving yourself more time. And this is all happening days before the event. So maybe you decide, okay, this child would really like some extra time with me. I could go to the park. We could go to the library. We could read some books. We could play some games. So you're figuring out all of that. You're making sure that you don't have other stresses on you that day so that you can really show up being available for her. Because if this is your first time really rolling out a connective strategic plan for this event, you don't want to be trying to juggle other things. Maybe down the road you can do all those other things, but in this case it's like, let me make my life as easy as possible. So you could cook dinner ahead of time or pick a really easy dinner, decide to not worry about cleaning up dinner until afterwards, some things like that. Also, giving yourself more space to get the child ready for the activity, to get you ready for the activity, making sure all the other kids are taken care of. Can you see how this is really intentionally created to set everyone up for success? So you have, let's go through the 3 strategies. You have really dialed in, or this mother prototype A, she's really dialed in her understanding of herself and her own behavior so she can leave room for her child. That's strategy 1. Strategy 2 is to consistently connect, which means how do we amp up the relationship so that we can create more trust, get their nervous system relaxed, and make it easier for my child to want to listen to me. And then the 3rd strategy is to choose closeness. So that's all about how am I going to respond to this situation, because it could go a lot of different directions. Am I prepared so I'm not surprised by what happens? Can you see how all of these things were done in the hypothetical situation I'm laying out? So this is what it looks like to take massive action from a parenting perspective. Do we have to do this for every single event? No. But if there is something really challenging coming up, looking at the root cause, looking at the antecedent, it's a fancy word, isn't it, for a fancy scientific word, but all it means is just looking at what comes before, what precedes the behavior, what precedes the event, what precedes the, emotion that our child's going through. So like, how can I prepare the environment to set everyone up for success? And it's up for success, whatever happens, whether the child has a beautiful night and nothing gets activated and it's just beautiful, or whether it's messy and emotionally heightened, like the emotions are heightened, and I'm helping her navigate those emotions. Either way are fantastic because there's beautiful outcomes from both. And so when we can prepare ourselves for that, we set ourselves up for success, we set our kids up for success, and we truly create an environment where our children can thrive, which is our goal. One of the pillars of Connect Method Parenting is be a gardener, not a sculptor. And if you think of the role of a gardener, it's about preparing the soil. And yeah, it might be exhausting to prepare the soil. It might take a lot of effort and intentionality and research and time. But when you prepare the soil, when you prepare the environment for the seeds to grow, you are going to have a healthy, thriving garden. And that's what we're doing. And that's what you're going to do. When you're creating an environment where your children can thrive, it takes a lot of energy, especially the first, second, third, fourth, few times we do it. It's new. And anything new we do requires more effort. But after you've done it a few times, it's going to get easier and easier. And it won't require quite so much intentional effort because it will become more and more second nature to you. Just like driving a car. First time you drive a car, wow, there's a lot going on. And it's really, you got to be super focused, really a lot. But then more you do it, the less intentional thought is required to operate the car. So yes, it's a lot of work, but it's also a lot of work to deal with their off-track behavior and to deal with the meltdowns and to deal with the confusion and the frustration and the fallout and the disconnection. So it's uncomfortable either way. It requires effort either way. And one is productive and one is not productive. So that's my example of parent A, which is really a culmination representing so many of the stellar parents that are inside of League right now, whether they're in Mastery or Pivot or bopping back between the two. They can go between either one. But just parents who I'm working with who are intentionally showing up, learning and implementing and iterating and trying and failing Connect Method Parenting. And there's so many of you. So if you feel like that your story was represented in that, in that story and you're in League, it's probably because I took a little bit of everyone's story and tried to help create a prototype picture of what this would look like, to create massive action, or rather to do massive action to create exactly what you want with your parenting, and to not give up and to not stop taking action until you create what you want. And then there's prototype parent B, who typically is the new parent who comes to me, or the parent who's just reaching out, who hasn't worked with me, and they don't have the relationship they want with their kids. And they're saying things to me like, I'm not sure it's possible. My kids don't really want to connect with me. I don't believe that this is even going to work. And I can't believe I don't have a better relationship with my kids. And I'm feeling hopeless and stuck and overwhelmed. And, they'll describe what they do. It's little spurts of action, or really beautiful, generous, spurts of action that they've taken, but it hasn't worked and it hasn't created what they've wanted. And so they're looking for something else. And I love when one of these parents, parent B, prototype B, comes in and they realize that what I have been doing isn't working and I'm looking for more. So can you help me? Versus what I'm doing isn't working and I don't think anything is going to work. And I've tried all the things and I'm stuck. So when we're thinking, oh my gosh, I've tried all the things and I'm stuck, that's when we're not taking massive action. That's when we're taking, either no action or ineffective action. It's more passive. We're thinking a lot about it. We're learning. Maybe we're listening to a lot of podcasts, and we're listening to books. Maybe we're asking friends what to do, but we're not taking the action that's getting us closer at that point. And like I said, a lot of these parents in this prototype B, scenario, I applaud them because they're coming to me and saying, this is where I am and I don't want to be here anymore. And that's perfect because prototype B was me those first 8 years. I was so hopeless and overwhelmed and stuck. But what I want to say is, if you get stuck feeling hopeless, overwhelmed, and if you are just continuing to learn, which was me, I was literally sitting at the park, learning about how to be fun with my kids, not actually trying it, And I love passive action. I love learning. I love a good History Channel segment. I love documentaries. I really love learning, but it can prevent me and has prevented me in the past from taking massive action. And so if I have a goal that I want to do something about and I need to change, I need to move, I need to figure something out, I have to switch out of passive and move into massive action, which does require some learning. Everyone in the pivot, we're learning, but then we are taking much more action than learning as far as time goes. A lot more action in the learning. So my Parent A prototype was thinking something like, I'm going to make this happen. I'm willing to give it everything. I'm not going to stop until I figure this out. Determined, capable, confident, focused is the emotions that I typically feel. And then they're diving in to create a 3 CMP strategy plan, action plan based on the 3 CMP strategies. And they are going for it and coming often to office hours saying, okay, I tried this, I'm stuck with this, I'm working, what can I do better? And then they're going and implementing, and we're coming back and iterating again and again and again. And that's what makes it happen. So passive action involves consumption, reading, planning, learning, thinking. It feels like progress, but it doesn't create results. Massive action involves creating, applying knowledge. So you learn, apply it, do the work, produce the results. Often massive action involves visible failure, which is hard. We don't want to fail. It doesn't feel safe, but it does. When we're taking big action, when we're doing things and we're learning and we don't know how to do it yet, it's going to have failure riddled in. So I'm saying that up front so because sometimes that will prevent us. The perfectionistic part of us, the part that's afraid of what other people might say, could prevent you from taking action. And I don't want that for you. I did that for myself for years and it felt terrible. I mean, I was protecting myself from other people's opinions, kind of, but people still judged me either way. And I wasn't taking the action. So when you're taking action, you need to ask yourself, am I consuming or creating? Am I thinking about doing something or am I actually doing something? I can take classes on a topic. I can talk to someone about a topic. I mean, literally, I could read for 4 days on a topic. I could watch the History Channel. I could search it up on the internet, watch some good YouTube videos about it, and then go to 4 more classes on the topic. I love learning, and that will feel like action to me. I will feel like I'm moving. I'm feeling like I'm taking steps, but all I'm doing is consuming. And even though it's active, it's consuming action. It's not productive action. I'm not in the process of creating. So passive action is kind of another word I use for intellectual action. So you're thinking about doing something, you're writing down ideas about doing something, you're talking to other people about doing something, but you're not actually doing something. And that's really important to know the difference, because when you are taking massive action, you're creating, you're learning if you need to learn, and then you're going into action mode. So when you look at your action and you think, okay, here's a goal I have, what do I need to do to take it? And I am all for the emotional work too. That is part of active action for me. You just have to step out of just consuming and learning and take it into action. And that includes the emotional action, that includes the mental action that we do with Daily Peace, but it also includes doing things with the kids, going and trying to make a change, right? And so we do the Daily Peace. If you're in Pivot, that's just going and looking at those thoughts, understanding yourself, calming your nervous system down, and then you got to go do the work with the kids and live your life and see what comes up. So when we're doing Pivot, you do like an hour of weekly content, which I think is a very doable amount of time. Like there's massive stuff we're learning in Pivot, and really big life-changing stuff about parenting and how we work as humans and how our nervous system works. So we try to fit that into an hour or less, and then a 15-minute daily practice. And then the rest of the time you're implementing. And we do have optional calls, but I would say they're implementing calls. You're getting on the calls and you're asking for help, and we're working, actively working. And on a specific situation, and we're coming up with plans. Everybody who's on the call, who's just listening in, is thinking, okay, that is really interesting. That's really interesting. How could I apply that to my life? But the reality is we need to practice more than we need new information. So there's a balance, right? New information, but the massive action moving forward with the knowledge is vital. And that's why I'm always telling people in Pivot, after you watch a lesson, tell me what you learned below. I want to hear your comment. I want to hear what your takeaway is. That is part of taking action. That's not passive. Passive is watching. We need obviously that in even in the groups I teach, right? You have to learn. But then start the massive action right away by commenting below, by sharing what you did with it, Asking questions, that's how you change things. And I have so many amazing students in Pivot this round. Well, every round has been amazing, but this round has just been so fun since I'm in the middle of it. I'm just looking at all of them right now, and I'm so in awe of them. And they're learning the structure and the framework of Connect Method parenting. They're learning how to see their kids through the lens of attachment. They're learning the 3 CMP strategies, which are understand your own behavior so you can leave room for theirs. Strategy 2 is to consistently connect. And strategy 3 is choose closeness, which is all about responding with connection. And what's really fascinating is sometimes, it's only happened a few times, but sometimes someone will reach out to me and they'll say, I have been taking so much action. I've been listening and reading to everything, and I'm not feeling any shifts. And I will say, okay, well, how much have you been applying what we taught you? Have you been doing your daily piece? And then if they're a little bit further into the pivot, I'll say, have you been implementing your connection plans? Have you been using the response plan assistant in real time or in reflection of past events to really understand how to respond with connection, not correction? And that's what I'm talking about all day, every day with parents in the pivot. And occasionally I have someone who tells me they're not getting the results they want, and they'll message me and they'll say, I'm just so busy with all of the things in Pivot that I'm not able to parent. And I start to wonder, how could that be? Because the 60-minute lesson, and sometimes it's not even that long, and the 15 minutes of daily practice, and that is the thing, the 60-minute lesson and the 15 minutes of daily practice are the 2 things that are being done outside of parenting. But basically everything else is being done in parenting. If you're working the program, that's just incorporated into the time you're already spent parenting. So it's not on top of it. It's not without your kids. And a lot of times they'll say, well, I'm just watching the lessons over and over again, and I just want to get it perfect. Or I'm spending an hour doing daily piece instead of 15 minutes. And I'm like, okay, well, we gotta stop listening to the lessons over and over again. If it's getting in the way of you doing the work, just take one thing from the lesson and go do it. Go try it out. Go see how it lands. Instead of doing an hour of daily piece, just set your timer for 5 or 15 minutes and stop. Even if it's in the middle of it, stop and come back tomorrow. Because it doesn't, well, here's actually the truth. Because if it's getting in the way of you parenting, then it's not helping. So you just take what you can take from the lesson and then you go do it and see what happens. And if you can't finish piece in 15 minutes because you're still new at it, no problem. You just stop halfway through and you pick it back up tomorrow. Totally fine. Because typically the reason that we would be stuck spinning in learning is because we're afraid to take massive action. I used to be so afraid to take massive action because if I did everything, I put my heart and soul and I followed the steps that were proven to be successful and it didn't work, I didn't have the results I wanted, then I wouldn't have any excuse to fail. So I would just fail ahead of time. I would never reach my goals. I know, great strategy, right? But I mean, I would get stuck in passive action or intellectual action because it felt safer. It felt like less work, but it's not safer. It's not less work because I'm not growing. I'm not changing. I'm just learning about how to be better, but I'm not being better. So not taking action on what you're learning with Connect Method parenting. And I'll even say in this podcast, if you're not in Pivot with me, I mean, because in Pivot, the reason I quantify like that is because in Pivot, I'm giving you very direct steps to take. And so hopefully you're listening to my podcast today and you're going to get inspired to go take those specific steps. But if you're not in Pivot, hopefully you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to just take what she teaches me out of this lesson and implement it. And that would be great. I mean, if you're in Pivot, take this and implement it too. But all of us should be, working on our parenting very proactively. But if you can just always be thinking in this mindset of, okay, I want to be taking massive action, not just learning. I want to be doing something with it. I need to be doing way more than I need to be learning. That will help set the scale straight so that you get the results you want in your life. Because thinking and reading and watching all the things about Connect Method parenting and not doing the actions of implementing is not going to work, right? So we have to do both. We have to learn about connection plans, not just think about your connection plans, not just plan your connection plan. You have to actually create the connection plan, implement the connection plan, and iterate on the connection plan. Fail, iterate some more, create a new one, implement again, fail, iterate over and over and over. And that's the difference. That's the difference between massive and passive action. So I want to explain where I'm in the middle of this right now in my life with massive and passive action. I decided after we left, so we left in September from the States and we'll be gone till March. And I had been playing around with the idea of re-recording all the lessons in Pivot, but I hadn't decided and I hadn't been able to get that done before we left. So we are in London, maybe Amsterdam, the first part of our trip. And I make this decision. I think I'm going to redo the lessons in Pivot. They need an update. I want to record them with better quality, more concise. I have some ideas that are not represented in the lessons. I need to record all of the lessons in Pivot, which is crazy because we're gone for 6 months and I'm literally mid-trip and I have no real resources to make sure this gets done well. I mean, I did bring my podcast mic, which is how I'm recording this for you, but I don't have a good setup. And we're just, vagabonds right now. We're vagabonds. How do you say it? We're just wandering around and I don't know where we're going to be and I don't have control over a lot of things. So I'm in Spain last month and I make the decision. I'm like, no, I'm seriously going to figure out how to do this. And I research where we're going next, which is Rome, which is where I am right now. And I find a place that will work and I start getting prepared. So I'm ready to do it, praying and hoping that they have time to fit me in while we're here. And we were here for a month, but you never know. Like, are they super busy? Do they have time? Because I have a lot of recording I want to do. And it all worked out. And it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge to figure it out. The studio I found is an hour bus ride away from where we're staying. So there's a lot of logistical part of it, just getting there. And then the language barrier has been a little bit of a problem. Not too bad. They speak pretty good English here, but a little bit of a problem. But I just decided, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stop thinking about refilming the lessons, re-updating them. And I'm going to just continue to take action until I figure this out. And I found a place in Spain, which is where I was really trying. I thought, I'm going to do it in Spain while we're there. But that didn't work out. So I was like, well, if that doesn't work out, I got to figure out a place in Rome then, and I just kept looking until I found a place that I could do it, that had the time, that was reasonable-ish, and, just figured it out. And it's been awesome. It's been awesome. So also, I just want to say, it's also been super challenging because I have had to have other people along the way as I decided to revise them. Other people look at the lessons, give me feedback. Some of it's, constructive feedback, but I'm, thinking, oh no, my stuff isn't very good. My brain wants to go there. And I'm like, no, it's just that like an author writing a book would have an editor look at their stuff. I'm just having people help refine my things. Like that makes sense. It's not a problem. That's what you would want to do if you were creating the best program in the industry, which is my goal, the best program in the industry to teach how to be a connective parent. So of course I want this program. I want this feedback. I want this, all of it. And my husband's been coming when I'm recording and he will sit right there. And if I don't smile or if I look angry or if I have the wrong tone, he'll start me over. And it's so helpful. It's so helpful. But I haven't been perfect. On Friday, which I'm recording this on Saturday, you're going to hear this on Monday. On Friday, we were at the recording studio and we had recorded 4 days that week. And I was very tired. And I was doing a very important lesson that I felt was really vital that I got it right. And I wanted to make sure I was communicating things clearly because this is can't wait for you all to hear it who are in Pivot, but just a really important message that I'm teaching. And I think all of that, came together and created what I would say was a train wreck recording session because I kept second guessing myself and I kept starting over and then I wouldn't start over where I left off. I would want to start over at the very beginning. And it literally took us 2 hours to record what will hopefully be like a 40-minute lesson, which is a lot of retakes. And I was, in this massive action cycle, failing so hard, failing and it just felt terrible. It felt terrible to not perform at the place I wanted to perform the day before I had killed it. I'd gotten tons of things recorded in a short period of time. I was just dialed in and then I just face planted the next day. It felt like, and I've cried about it and I'm sure it'll be fine. Or if not, I'll just record them. But that's the difference between taking massive and passive action is being willing to show up, fail big time, get feedback, feel all the obstacles come up and continue to go anyway. So let me break down the mindset shift that you really need to embody if you're wanting to live in the land of massive action, which is, I hope, a goal of all of ours. And also, again, okay if we don't always live there, but I love that that's our intention. So we've got to focus more on the solution, not the problem. Leverage feedback and obstacles to refine the approach. And here's a great way to know if you've been taking massive action. You're probably failing on your face over and over again, which is what I was trying to help you see with my recordings. Like over and over again, I'm failing. Or I can't find the studio, or how in the heck am I going to do this while we're out of the country and I don't speak the language that we're, in the country we're at? How am I going to find somebody? I don't have a phone that has the right number. So I can't call Italian numbers. I had all of these things that I felt like were pushing up against me as the obstacles. And for me to say, I don't care what it's going to take. We are figuring this out. I'm figuring this out. And when you juxtapose that with passive action doesn't require any failure, because all you're doing is thinking about what's possible. You're not creating what's possible. Huge, huge distinction. So don't get me wrong. Again, I love dipping into both. I think they're both valuable. They're both fantastic. I love learning. I love reading. I love taking classes and courses. I love all of that. And I have to balance that passive action with my massive action side. So for those in Pivot, if you feel like you are hiding in any way, but you are still taking action, that's passive action. Massive action requires you to fall on your face, usually in front of other people. So I want to encourage you to take the massive action and fall on your face and get back up again and show up to the calls and do the work. And if you have questions or you feel stuck, you reach out and we work on them, but you're not hiding. You're not coming up with excuses. It's so much easier to consume information, learn information, read information than take action on that information. And I, for one, prefer to consume than to create, because creating is very scary. Even when I first started this podcast, it took me 6 months after I started trying to put my thoughts together to get myself to do it. And my book, the same way, it took me 2 years actually to write my book. Not because I was literally writing for 2 years. I just would write a little bit and then second guess and then scratch the whole thing and then write again. And the process was really challenging. And the night that I submitted it, my publisher that helped me, I was like a quasi self-publishing, but I had a company that helped publish it with me. And I submitted it to them. They were in England. So I submitted at night because I had to get it by their morning. And I couldn't sleep that night. I was sick to my stomach. I was emailing them like, if you think this is terrible, please don't move forward with it. And I'm fine. And I don't really need to be an author and blah, blah, blah. Like, it is terrifying to take massive action. And with parenting, especially if you have bigger kids, it's a little easier if you have little kids because they are so cute and they're so energetic and emotional. And usually we can not take it so personal. But with big kids, when we take massive action and they reject us, or they say, I don't want to spend time with you, or Mom, you're so rude, or they can feel like really big obstacles. They can feel like they are allowing us to, or forcing us, you could think of it that way too, forcing us to fall on our face over and over and over again. But this journey, you all, this journey will change you if you're willing to keep going. It will evolve you and help you learn how to overcome anything. I promise you, if you apply this with your parenting, you will be able to be the parent you want to be, because you're going to be able to manage your emotions in the most profound way. It's going to bring up so much. It's going to feel hard. It's going to feel icky. This is what I'm feeling right now with redoing my podcast episode and a couple other big things I'm doing both in my personal life and with getting this Connect Method parenting framework out to everyone. But it's bringing up a lot. And every time it brings something up, I realize that's where I need more growth. So that is what I want you to be thinking too. Massive action is the thing that will introduce you to yourself. Whenever I'm working with a parent in Pivot, I'll say to them, if you stick with your connection plan for 30 days, you will meet yourself, because you will fail. If you try to do it for 30 days, things will go wrong. The kids won't want to do it. You'll have someone question your parenting one day, and then it'll cause you to have some doubts. Then you'll be wanting to quit the whole thing and just go back to the old way. And if you can stick with it, if you can be willing to fail to get the result you want, if you're willing to fail as many times, because the goal of creating an incredible relationship with your child, or creating a bedtime routine you look forward to, or stopping the feeling of resentment you have towards one of your kids, if that goal is worth it, a connection plan is one of the elements. Well, all the 3 CMP strategies put together in the 3-pronged strategy, putting that plan together will work. It will work if you stick with it. And if you know that you've put together a plan that will work, it might not be perfect in the first iteration. We might have to do it again and again and again until we dial it in perfectly for you and your child, your situation and your home and all of the things. But if you know, hey, this is going to work, then obviously you wouldn't care how many attempts it took to figure it out. So if I was going to sell you on something, it would be you. You have what it takes to fail as many times as needed. There's no emotion that you can't experience. Whatever desire you have to quit is because you want to get out of the emotion you're experiencing. So if you're experiencing failure, disappointment, embarrassment, rejection, but you know that the worst thing that could happen to you is just another emotion, and you know you can handle those emotions, but you can also realize your body wants to get you out of those emotions. They hate humiliation, terror, rejection, embarrassment. Those are some of my worst fears, the ones I don't like the most. But you can say, hey, I'm wanting to quit just because I don't want to feel this emotion. That awareness will save you from quitting ahead of time. That feeling that comes up for you, that feeling of discouragement, that feeling of shame, that feeling of fear, disappointment, whatever comes up for you, that is what you want to escape from when you try to quit. But if you're willing to feel those emotions, you realize that's what's happening. I'm just trying to get out of this emotion. If you invite it in, if you say, bring it on, come on, I'm willing to feel this emotion, I got you, then you will. And there will be no amount of mistakes that will discourage you. You'll find another way to keep going. You won't give up. You'll take action. You'll see it didn't work. You'll take more action. That is why this is such a gift. Your willingness to take massive action, to recognize the difference between passive and massive action, to recognize when you're hiding versus when you're resisting versus when you're going all in, that is so life-changing. People will say to me, massive action just sounds so exhausting. I'm tired. And I get it. If you feel exhausted, if you heard me describe the prototype parent A's plan for helping their child with a tricky situation and you think, wow, that was a lot of things. You're right. It was a lot of things. But it's also exhausting to stay where you are. It's exhausting to keep hiding. It's exhausting to not show up fully or create the result you want. Think about hiding from someone that you're scared of. If you are worried someone's coming to get you, and you're thinking, they're coming to find me. Oh no, they're going to get me. They're going to get me. That's exhausting. You're tense. You're hiding. You're like, I hope they don't see me. That's exhausting. And that's what it's like when we're like, I hope this emotion doesn't come get me. I hope I don't feel disappointment, or actually I better not even do anything that would remotely have the potential to make me feel that way. That's not showing up and getting the results you want. And that is exhausting. Passive action, hiding, it's its own layer of exhaustion. But if you're willing to be exhausted in the way that gets you closer to your goal, and requires work to try and fail and to try again and fail. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's simple. I'm not saying it's free of effort, but I am saying at least that type of action is getting you closer and closer to the result you want. You're not just spinning around in circles and circles, wondering, why is this not working for me? So here's what I want to invite you to do today. I want you to pick something. I want you to find a parenting goal that means something to you. I want to create a better relationship with my child. I want to create an evening routine with my child. I want you to think about that big goal, and I want you to commit to massive action for 30 days. And the massive action I want you to commit to isn't to completely rehaul your bedtime routine. That's kind of big. Let's just dial it back a few steps and say, could you read to your child every night, or sing them a song, or do a simple bedtime routine as the beginning step to creating what you want? Could you eat breakfast together if you feel disconnected from your child? Could you scratch their back in the morning when they wake up for 30 days in a row? How about eating dinner together if that's not happening right now, or texting your teen one time a day, or making their lunch, or doing something for your teen that maybe you normally wouldn't do for a whole month, just out of the kindness of your heart, just to serve the heck out of them? Could you do that? Could you pick one thing that you could commit to doing for the next 30 days that would be out of service to your child, that would get you one step closer to your goal? And commit alongside of this thing you decide to do to write down your thoughts every single day as you're taking action. Now, will you miss a day? Oh, 100%. Will you fail? Probably. Will you want to get up? I would assume so. But that's the difference between whether you get to the end of the result that you're looking for or not. It comes down to, will you continue to try? Would you be willing to fail 100 times and then 101? Or is it at 100 you're done? That's what I'm talking about. That's how you create the result in your life, is by willing to fail as many times as it takes to get the result you want. You can either make up an excuse and go back into passive action, or you can be willing to do it again and again and again until the result you want happens. And if you want to change your parenting forever, massive action married with the insights of Connect Method Parenting is the key to creating whatever you want in your life. All right, you guys, that's what I have for you today. Thanks so much for listening. And it would be amazing if you would take just a second and write a quick review for this podcast on iTunes. I would appreciate that so much. All right, y'all, we'll talk to you later. Bye. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, come check out League, my Connect Method parenting coaching program. where we take this material and we apply it using my proven formula. Head over to cmp.works/join.